folks who raised their hands because they were new to this work. Dick started talking a little while ago about sort of how we got here, and I just wanted to reiterate that and go even further back. So during the run-up to the 2016 mayoral election, a whole bunch of environmental groups that do greening, that do neighborhood work, that do water quality work, got together and started talking about how do we elevate these kinds of issues that are really critical to our quality of life, to our air, our water, our parks, our neighborhoods, our communities. How do we elevate these issues during the conversations that happen when folks are running for office? And so it's not to say that perennial challenges like education and our budget and crime and schools and safety, those things are very, very important. We're not saying they're not. But we think that this suite of issues related to the air we breathe, the water we drink, the waterways that connect our communities, whether or not we have trees and access to parks and green spaces, those are a lot of the reasons why people choose to live here and what makes our community strong. So how do we elevate those issues? And back in 2016, we came up with this idea of hosting a mayoral forum and putting some of these questions to the candidates for mayor. And so we did that, and we had several hundred folks show up at Mount Lebanon Baptist Church, and we had all 472 mayoral candidates cram on a stage. And it was actually a really great first step. And then unfortunately, a lot of our groups kind of went back to what they were doing before, and then 4 years passed, lo and behold, and we found ourselves talking again. We need to do this again, but this time we need to make it more durable. And we need to invite in the folks that live and breathe this stuff. So the folks who are working with their community association or their neighbors to steward the park spaces around where they live or the green spaces around where they live. The folks who are writing letters to their current council members about challenges they're seeing in their neighborhoods or things that they want to see changed. And so when we had 136 people show up for Jill John's talk back in April, and several of us were sort of speaking on a panel after that, we thought, you know, let's keep this momentum going. And so that was the June 3rd meeting that we held right here. And we had, I think Dick said, around 65 folks show up. And we asked those folks to split up into 4 tables and to talk about the things that they felt like our next group of leaders really needed to think about. And so we got a lot of big pieces of paper from that night that members of that steering committee have been working with over the last couple of months to really try to tease out both a high-level vision for what we want to see in Baltimore City and what we want our next mayor to commit to. And then we kind of took some of the details to create a bit of a platform. These are the things that we want our next set of elected officials to work to implement. So I will say that I'm going to go through sort of the top line overview. We have 2 big sheets of paper that are pinned against the closet doors that Avelino is closing right now. One of those pages is our vision, and then the other one is the platform. And so I would encourage you to take a look and read that. We will also be asking to capture your email addresses before tonight is over, so we will be sharing all this material with you. But so I'm going to start with the vision, and this is kind of the high level, what we believe we want our candidates thinking about. And the first thing is that we deserve a healthy environment for every child, every resident, every person that lives, works, or plays in this city deserves a healthy environment. And we mean that is a green, thriving, healthy, and just city. And we're going to come back to the suite of words that we keep using over and over, and we're actually going to ask for feedback on sort of the name of our group. But we have been playing around with sort of blue, green, and just, because that's what we see as sort of first and foremost. We want to see safe green infrastructure, parks, greenways, trees, intact forests that are connecting to other green spaces, parks, forests, community gardens, street trees. We want the elements that were articulated in the city's green network plan, we want to see that realized, and we want to see resources put to implementation to make that come to fruition. And we think that every neighborhood should be within 5 minutes, within a 5-minute walk of planned, well-maintained green spaces. Whether that is a formal park like Druid Hill, or that might be a pocket park, or a neighborhood garden, or a neighborhood space. But so this is what we want to see for an overarching healthy environment. We want our next mayor and our next city council to focus on green infrastructure. We want that to be what underlies all of our decision making. We have other cities just within Philadelphia, DC, but other cities around the country that have demonstrated that green infrastructure can be the answer to multiple questions simultaneously. These folks have found that investing in green infrastructure can actually have a very positive return on investment and can leverage additional funds, often from outside. So if we're thinking strategically and we're thinking innovatively, why can't our city agencies that are working on stormwater be partnering with our city agencies that have public health dollars, be partnering with our city agencies that are thinking about maintaining road rights of way, be partnering with our education agencies? We believe that green infrastructure is related to all of these different areas, and we want leadership that is going to recognize this and prioritize this too. There is a growing body of research that is suggesting that green infrastructure benefits are demonstrated to relate to improved health outcomes, reductions in crime, increased property values, reduced summertime temperatures. There are a lot of things that making our city a healthier, greener city is going to be able to help us to improve. And we look at that as the best possible way to invest in our neighborhoods. So to us, and everything that we've been talking about, equity, justice, and security are second to none. So many of our most vulnerable neighborhoods have not consistently seen these kinds of green improvements. Many in this room have probably heard about Baltimore's green L, or sometimes our white L, and our black butterfly. And our black butterfly are our neighborhoods that are predominantly African American, that have lower tree canopy coverage, that often have higher incidences of respiratory distress, asthma, or other poor health outcomes. And it's traditionally where investment has not gone. We want to see that reversed, and we think that, again, green infrastructure can be a way to equalize some of these disparities and make sure that all of our residents have access to nature and the benefits that come along with green infrastructure. And then finally, we don't want somebody that's going to give all of this lip service. We want somebody, whether they adopt our vision or something similar to it, we want someone committed to bold action. And that needs to be the thing that we drive all of our folks who are campaigning for whatever elected office, is we need vision and we need action. And like I said before, green infrastructure, we believe, can address multiple challenges and increase some significant outside investments to help us achieve our goals. Okay, so that was sort of the nuts and bolts of the vision. And now I'm going to get into some of the details of the platform that we developed. And again, this is directly the outcome of all of that work that these 65 folks did back in June. We got a lot of feedback. And we took a great deal of time trying to sort through all of that to find commonalities and to determine what we felt like was most representative of what we were hearing from all four tables. I'm sure this is not going to cover everything. Somebody is going to come up with, ooh, but what about? And that we can get into in the Q&A. But we feel pretty good about this, this compilation of what we heard. So the first one is climate and resiliency. This is the issue of our time. And we need our next mayor recognizing that. We also need our next mayor recognizing that trees are a compelling part of the solution. And so we want trees everywhere. We want to increase tree planting by 20% year over year until our tree canopy goals are met and until we can legitimately say that we are a clean and green Baltimore city. We also want to see green infrastructure mandated as the first consideration for development, redevelopment, or solutions to some of our shared challenges. Not the last thing that we consider. Under land and land use, we had a lot of discussions about this and really recognized that Baltimore does have a lot of really high quality natural resources. We have some amazing parks. We have some amazing intact forests. We've got a lot of pocket parks and community stewarded green spaces. So first and foremost, the most important thing for our next city leaders is to protect what we have and make sure that we are not sacrificing a mature stand of forests for something that may be able to be implemented someplace else. Because, oh, we can replant that. It's going to take us a good 30 years to get that ecosystem function and those values back. So protect what we have first. Then let's figure out how to get more. A couple of things that came up, and they actually came out of several of the different groups in slightly different ways. But folks realize that there's a lot of opportunity in some of our vacant and derelict properties, and there's got to be a better way to turn those properties over more quickly, either to neighbors or community groups or other folks who are willing to steward those properties and do something meaningful with them. And in a lot of regards, maybe compiling or aggregating some of these properties so that we can actually provide green infrastructure instead of just vacant spaces. We want our next mayor to really increase investments in green infrastructure, both in maintaining what we have and in developing more. So we want to see our park maintenance fund increase by 25% over the next 3 years. That fund, unfortunately, has steadily been eaten away, and we are not putting the kind of funding that we feel like we need into maintaining what we currently have. We also want to see a dedication of at least $1 million annually from our current existing stormwater utility fee going directly into community-based and community-supported green infrastructure. We spend a lot of money as a city on things like street sweeping, and while that's great to help us meet a permit, it doesn't provide the kind of community and neighborhood benefits that green infrastructure can over a much longer term. And then we don't want another plan. We have some really great work that's already been completed by our city agencies, including the Green Network Plan that I just mentioned. Just in 2019, earlier this year, our new sustainability plan. We have a climate action plan. We've got neighborhood master plans. I don't even know how many. But let's use those plans that have already taken a lot of really good thought, a lot of time and energy to develop, and let's pull from those and let's implement. And let's figure out how we can leverage the state's strategic demolition fund to maybe help us turn over some of those vacant properties. What other resources are out there that we should be tapping into to implement these plans instead of starting from scratch and thinking we have to develop a new roadmap for moving forward? We've got the elements there that we need. Let's move. All right, the next section we're calling air and water. The two things that none of us in this room can live without, period. And yet these clean air and clean water get relegated to the back burner when we're talking about economic development or things that community needs. This needs to go back being front and center. How do we protect our air and our water for all of our residents? So what we want is a mayor who's going to work to accelerate the pace of repair for our existing water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure, so that we can accelerate the benefits that come from that. So healthy streams, healthy neighborhoods, no more sewage backups in people's basements. We can beat 2030. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of dedicated time and resources, but let's make that a priority and push ourselves. We want to see a city government that invests and really gets behind truly clean energy. Not incineration that was, I don't know, somebody said it was green and put it in a state renewable portfolio standard when it's really not very clean at all. We want a mayor who's going to truly invest in clean energy for all of our city-owned schools and city-owned buildings. And then third, we want to make sure that when we are doing big infrastructure planning for stormwater and for wastewater infrastructure, that those plans are respecting our current natural resources. We do not want to see continued erosion of our forests, our green spaces, and our stream corridors because we need a new pipeline or we need a renewed part of a gray infrastructure. How do we make those things work together instead of at odds? And then this last section it looks like a bit of a catch-all. We're calling it transparency, accountability, inclusion, and communication. That's because we could not settle on one word that we thought truly captured all of this. But this number one is probably one of the biggest things that we might be able to convey to our next mayor. We want a cabinet level position in the mayor's office that is dedicated to integrating the work of different agencies, different plans, different goals, that is really going to prop up the importance of implementing green infrastructure, maintaining our existing forests and green spaces, and prioritizing what our communities, what our neighbors have to say about plans to change a stream, put in a new pipeline or a new transmission line. We have an amazing wealth of resources within our neighborhoods, within our community groups. How do we make sure that those folks get a seat at the table? You know, and there are a million ways that we could do this. These are just some ideas that we came up with. But what if this cabinet level sustainability director held quarterly meetings that were just about hearing from residents and stakeholders and neighbors and community groups about what's happening where they live, what they're concerned about, and what they think about the latest plan or project or problem. When we do have specific projects that are coming down the pipeline, we feel that city agencies need to prioritize going to where our residents already are. So instead of holding an independent meeting at a library outside of a particular neighborhood, find out where that neighborhood's community association meets and go there. Find out which churches in those neighborhoods have space to host a community meeting. Where are the other ways that communities and neighbors and residents are already getting together and talking? And we want our city representatives and our city agencies to come to us so that there is a lot more interaction and communication and transparency in terms of how folks feel about plans, where they may be concerned, and frankly, where they may have a really great idea that needs to be part of that plan. And then lastly, we want to see a reinstatement of the Baltimore City Parks Board that would help with oversight over activities within our parks, maintenance and development needs within our parks, and some of the issues that we feel we have lost over the years. Okay, so that was the really sort of, there you go. That was sort of the really quick and dirty overview of the work that our steering committee and other volunteers have been doing literally for the entire summer since June 3rd. And we've really been meeting like every 2 or 3 weeks and hashing it out.